The Canadian Grand Prix was yet another back-to-reality moment for Sergio Perez, which seemed to go on a regular basis now. Such were the promises put out by Perez at the start of the season that everyone would have deemed him mature enough to challenge Max Verstappen for the title. But with him having slump after slump in the last few races, and especially Max winning those, we can safely say that Perez not only is out of the title race, but will now have to fight for the second place in the drivers' standings. So, is Perez actually fit to drive a Red Bull, and is his position in the team actually threatened? Sergio Perez promised a lot this season, and he started very well, having won 2 out of the first 5 races, which is not bad start considering he's had 2 P2s as well. But when the Monaco Grand Prix came and Perez had an absolute howler, everyone thought that this was just one bad race and that the Mexican will show what he has in his arsenal in the next few races. However, everyone was wrong, as Perez had 2 terrible races, finishing P4 and P6 in Spain and Canada respectively, and with that allowing Max to not only go 69 points ahead of him, but with Alonso's P2 in Canada, the Spanish driver is now within 9 points of him in the fight for P2. What is going on with Checo, and has the pressure of battling against Max gotten to his head? Red Bull's miscalculation in the narrow dry tire window during Q2 largely contributed to Perez's inability to qualify for Q3 for the 3rd consecutive race. However, it was during race day in Canada that Perez, driving the fastest car on the grid, was expected to make a significant comeback. Despite these recent recovery attempts, his chances at the title were effectively quashed as his teammate Max Verstappen continued his winning streak. Perez began the race on the hard tire, a strategy that swiftly proved ineffective when George Russell's crash on the 12th lap led to the deployment of the safety car. This situation permitted a round of inexpensive pit stops, and Checo realized he was in for a more challenging afternoon than what he had initially anticipated. And what's even sadder is that before the Canadian GP, you could see in his statement that he was thirsty for a good race and a good overall performance. I basically want a restart, to go again. Monaco was all down to me. I had a really bad mistake. Then in Barcelona, in the qualifying again, it was tricky with the damp conditions. We didn't manage to have a good quali, and we paid the price on Sunday. I'm looking forward to getting back on the form we had in the early season. It was difficult in Barcelona. It's the only time I had difficulties with the car. I can't afford to have any bad weekends anymore. However, even with the unfavorable timing of the safety car, it was alarming that Perez couldn't pose a substantial challenge to the leading Ferraris. Carlos Sainz, who started just a position ahead, finished the race with a 30-second lead after making an additional pit stop to secure the bonus point for the fastest lap. Perez went on to admit that he is concerned about his lack of pace recently. "Yeah, I am very concerned about that," he replied when asked if he's disappointed that he could not pressure Ferrari. "We just didn't have the pace, and we don't understand why. That's the weird thing, so we have to figure it out. We're going to sit down and look back because we know what we're capable of, and it's just important for us to understand what's going on. We had a good start to the weekend, but we made some changes. We did the tires a little bit different, so I don't know if there's anything in that." If I'm being honest, as someone who wants to have an interesting title race, this is extremely disappointing from Checo. The Canada GP marked the 3rd consecutive race where he failed to reach Q3, a statistic that is disheartening to put it mildly, considering the fact that you're driving by far the fastest car on the grid. By now, he must have realized that these lapses aren't just damaging his shot at the championship, but they could also risk his standing as the second-place driver and his position within the team. Because as we know, Red Bull has some talented drivers waiting for a chance at any point. To add insult to injury, after the Montreal Grand Prix, Checo must also deal with the reality that he consistently fell 0.7 seconds per lap behind his teammate Verstappen throughout the race. And when we count his single unexpected overtake on Albon, it unfortunately paints a bleak picture of Perez's race performance, as he's significantly off from where he assured us he'd be. To be honest, given the commitments he made at the start of the season, I feel he owes us a lot, and he is still to put his money where his mouth is. The thing is, not everyone can compete with a generational talent like Max Verstappen. I mean, the guy's been racing since the age of 4. But with the experience Checo has as a racer, it is simply unacceptable that he is not even close to finishing on the podium in every race there is, considering how overpowered the RB19 is. And if your teammate is able to get pole positions with 1 second difference in front of the second car, and sometimes even with worn-out tires, you are of course expected to be right behind him and have a safe podium spot. But what does Perez do? He doesn't even reach Q3 in 3 consecutive races, which is really bad, and that's just putting it lightly. He simply needs to be better in qualifying to begin with, as you cannot start the race behind the 10th position consistently and call yourself a title challenger. For example, Max has started races like that as well, but we can see that he constantly finishes on the podium and even winning, so the bare minimum Perez can do is accompany Max in the post-race cooling room. If we could dig deeper for a moment, we can see that indeed it might be that the championship talk and the situation he was in at the start of the season is getting to him. Unlike Max, who was winning karting championships, Perez in his life has only won 1 title, which is the British Formula 3 in 2007. So, it's evident that he doesn't have the experience of being a champion, which in and of itself brings the ability to handle pressure and perform on a high level when driving an important race. Even Max might have been concerned when he saw that he will have a genuine title contender behind him for the first time since the notorious 2021 season. But then, instead of crumbling like Checo, he put his foot on the gas and made the difference. It's safe to say that Perez has his work cut out for him. But right now, we are not talking about becoming a champion. We're talking about keeping his spot in Red Bull for the next season. Both Horner and Marco Helmut have criticized him, saying basically that he needs to focus on helping the team finish 1-2 in both the drivers' and constructors' standings, to which Perez responded that he wants to fight for the championship. But we see how that is turning out so far, so this begs the question: would the Red Bull hierarchy look to replace him? Because certainly, with how ruthless the above-mentioned guys in the Red Bull HQ are, they will not tolerate Red Bull's Constructors' title being under threat. And if Perez continues like this, it sure as hell will be, since Ferrari and Mercedes have drivers that can score high points every race, and we see how consistent Alonso is with Aston Martin. Considering the rising talents from the academy such as Liam Lawson and Ayumu Iwasa and Tsunoda's recent resurgence, it's clear that Perez needs to up his game significantly if he wishes to continue driving in the Austrian team. Unfortunately for him and for the sport's sake, he needs to acknowledge that being the nice guy can only get you so far, and that the quote "nice guys finish last" is perfect for this occasion. Only in Perez's case, they finish outside of the podium. Now, Perez is losing ground even to drivers who are significantly trailing Verstappen, drivers he should be able to overtake without much resistance. But the reality is that he can't even get close to them to compete for a spot, let alone display the dominance he showed earlier this season. He has a tough task ahead, and it seems like he's leaving his team high and dry just when they need him the most, in securing the Constructors' Championship. This could potentially cost him his seat. At this point, it appears that Perez needs a complete reset to regain the pace he exhibited at the start of the season. Only time will reveal if that will come to fruition. Thank you for watching, and let us know your thoughts and opinions. Do you think Perez can get it together and at least secure his P2 position in the driver's standings? Like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.